Welcome in, everyone. Draft Night Podcast. Ron Hearn, Brandon Cooley. This is Wednesday, April 23rd. Happy Draft Eve. Let's get into it, man. So we were just talking about what we were drinking. So I need to figure out if there's a way to reverse this so people can actually read this.
It's reversed to you. It comes out on the feed the right way.
So you can read this the right way.
Correct. I thought the same
Cool.
thing on something that we did a while ago. It's like my shirt is backwards to me, but is it backwards to you?
No,
Exactly.
read that perfectly. Okay.
So the viewers
Interesting.
get the correct way.
Good to know. Okay, well, this is Sell the Team by Celestial Beer Works, a top two brewery for me. So this is obviously in honor of our beloved Adelsons and Mr. Dumont. So this is a double hazy. Yeah, this is a double hazy. All kinds of hops. Don't know how to pronounce. 7.7% alcohol, and this is how it looks in the glass. So it looks juicy because it is juicy. So you can't see through that bad boy either. It's delicious. Celestial's awesome. They do all kinds of crazy IPAs. They nickname all their stuff Space Juice. But on top of that, they do some really cool artwork on all of their cans. You see the deflated basketballs here. I have another one in the fridge. Maybe I'll debut that one next week, and it has some really much cooler artwork in my opinion. But they have local artists do all their stuff, so it's pretty cool if you drink their stuff. You're supporting local brewery, you're supporting local art. They have a really cool tap room down in it's by the medical district, right off of the Dart line. And so they have a cool outdoor area. They have a taco truck that's there all the time, and they're always doing really cool stuff. So um, a really cool place to check out. What do you got?
The very last beer from my 6-pack I bought last time, and I'm going with Plutonium. This is a coconut porter from Manhattan Beer Project, and it's delicious. So let's crack it. Everything you expect in a porter. It is coconutty, it's chocolatey, it's coffee-y, it's thick. It tastes like a cold hot chocolate would be the best reference point here. It's freaking good. And it's not cold out or anything, but I turned the air down in my house to make it feel colder, so that this would be a more for a nice spring day. But I'll go back to Kroger this week and pick up a new 6-pack of all summer beers, so we can be prepared for those. But no, I love Manhattan Oh my God, Manhattan Project Beer Company. This 6.2%. They have an IPA that you like, I believe.
Hmm. Yeah, halfway.
Yeah, one of these days I'll drink an IPA, but today's not that day.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Plutonium, big fan of that beer too. It's actually one of my favorites of any beer because coconut porters are amazing, and that's a damn good one. Um, but yes, they're most well known for their Half-Life IPA, and they have a really good lighter version called Quarter Life. That's a perfect pool beer because it's like 98 calories, but has a ton of flavor. It's really unique, so I love that one in the summer. So hopefully that one comes onto the show at some point. So yeah, today we're talking Mavs because their season came to an end. And then we're talking draft because the draft is tomorrow. So let's get the Mavs out of the way first. So their season ended, I think this was Friday night on the road in Memphis. So I was wrong. I went on the record last podcast and said that they would beat Memphis and we'd be in the middle of a playoff series against OKC. Yeah, I was way wrong because even though they got it down to 8 at one point, it was domination. They got their ass kicked. It was over pretty early, actually. Like I think, yeah, the first half was actually pretty ugly at times, but it's over. How do you feel now? You miss them? You feel a loss?
No, I think I'm finally breathing a sigh of relief that we can finally put this season to bed, at least from a basketball on the court playing standpoint. We still have a whole lot to unpack regarding front office shenanigans, Nico's presser that he had the other day, some of the stuff he was talking about. I'm just really really glad that we can be done, and now I can just root on Luca and unfortunately the Lakers and hope that he wins his championship, because I would love, I think I said this on the last pod, I would love nothing more than Luca just to go in, win a championship immediately. He's putting up MVP type numbers anyway since he's been traded to the Lakers. And I mean, last night's game, he looked incredible. I mean, he almost had 31-point triple doubles, one assist away. He's just doing magical things. And but no, back to the Mavs. So glad we're done. Glad we can move on, and I'm really excited and nervous to see how we play out the rest of this offseason moving into next season.
So the whole moniker has been defense wins championships, and the
Hmm.
Mavs got their doors blown off, and they had all their best defenders. So PJ was on the floor, AD was on the floor. Um, that's Lively, Gafford. You had all of those guys, right?
Yeah.
So then that's not going to change when AD comes back. So that's a bad sign, considering you went into that game healthy and he got killed, and then we all saw what happened to Memphis. They have lost the first two games to OKC by combined 70 points, which is second in terms of the worst margin in NBA history, in NBA playoff history. So they are absolutely getting destroyed, and they destroyed us. So that's a good reference point for where the Mavs are at right now, roster wise.
So then let me ask you this, Ron. Given the fact that Memphis blew us out and then OKC, especially in that first game, what is it, 131 to 70 or something stupid?
Yeah,
How do you think a matchup would have been OKC versus the Mavericks had it gotten to that point?
yeah. I said all along that the big issue is the ball pressure. So the Thunder have all of these really good perimeter, super athletic guys, right, that they can throw at you. So we saw that somewhat last year. Lou Dort was kind of the big villain because he was always guarding Luca and he's super physical. But they have a bunch of guys. So, they have Case and Wallace, they have the two J Wills, I think they have Caruso coming off the bench they can throw at you. So
So
they're
good. He
they're
was so good last night.
yeah, yeah. So it's like they have so much. Even if you have really good ball handling, they're a problem. So even if you had Luca and Kyrie this year, they would have been a problem. So, but this version of the Mavs, had they went on to play OKC with your primary ball handlers being Spencer Dinwiddie, and Brandon Williams, and then whoever else, right? Maybe you get some Exum, get some PJ, get some AD. It would have been a disaster. So, I think we'd probably be seeing similar numbers to what we're seeing with Memphis. And Memphis honestly probably has actually considerably better ball handling than the Mavs do at this point. With Ja and Desmond Bain and even Jaren Jackson, he can handle the ball. So yeah, honestly, I think it would be the exact same thing that we're seeing with Memphis, which is just shows how far away they actually are. Which actually kind of that's why Mavs fans are feeling hopeless. Because on one hand you have that, and you're coming to that realization, and on the other hand you have what you were just talking about, which is watching Luca and seeing everything that he's doing in the playoffs. So, I mean, I'll give you the tough question. What do you say to Mavs fans that right now are feeling hopeless? It's pure darkness. They don't see a future. Like, is there any positives they can take from this?
I'm not sure there is, and the reason why is one of the things that Nico said in the presser over the weekend was that he feels like he has the pieces in place right now, the foundation between PJ, Gaff, AD, Kyrie, and Clay, and then Lively, of course. He said he feels like he's got the core of the team now. It's just building a good bench and utilizing the draft around them. The problem is we don't control a first round draft pick till 2032, so that's number one. So building through the draft is not going to happen. You don't get anybody really that good outside of the first round. You might catch fire on someone accidentally in the second round, but it's not likely. So draft is out of it. Free agency, I don't know who we're going to be able to pick up in free agency for two reasons. Number one, everybody saw what happened to Luca with this trade. If Luca is not considered untouchable to be traded under the darkness of night, that means nobody's safe in this organization. Number one. Number two, you would have to unload so much on your roster regarding your big guys like Gaff or Lively. God forbid AD if he got put up for trade bait immediately. But something like that would have to be packaged together along with, I don't know, maybe some money, maybe a 2033, 2034 first round pick. But realistically, what team would want to commit to a first round pick that far down the line, especially if they're in win now category at present? It just, I don't see much hope for what the next season brings, especially with Kyrie. He's going to miss most of next season with the injury. Lively just came back from an injury. He seems to be playing fine for the most part. He's been limited, should be full strength, but I don't have a lot of hope because you saw AD limp off the court in the Memphis game. That loss was capped off with the most poetic, most perfect possible ending that could have happened. And then you see as AD goes to the bench, the camera veers up to Nico, and he gives this little side eye that he doesn't want anybody to see him staring at AD while he, carries himself off the court. So no, I don't have a lot of hope. A little bit despair, a lot of bit despair, but we will move on.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, that's a damn good breakdown. I mean, so a couple things. So Nico said it himself during that press conference that this is the base roster, right? This is basically it. So they will do some tweaks. They will add. So they have the 12th. I think it's the 12th pick. I mean, we'll see what ends up happening in the lottery, but they'll probably have an 11th, 12th pick in this year's draft. And then you're right, they don't control their destiny for a long time. In terms of free agency, they are just under the first apron, so they're basically hard capped. So unless they send some players out, they're not doing anything in free agency. And then if you look at it, actually gets worse when you look at future draft assets. So the Mavericks actually don't have a second round pick, I think, until 2033, and which is really, really damning because some of those picks are going to be literally at the top of the second round. So basically a late first rounder. The reason for that is some terrible deal making. We sent a very high second out in the Quentin Grimes trade for absolutely no reason because we also sent out the better player and got back a worse player that I don't think scored in the two playing games. So yeah, I mean I think it's the despair, the feeling of hopelessness. I don't know how you get over it because yeah, you're right. I think AD had like four different injuries in the game against Memphis. Like at one point he was grabbing his calf, his leg, his groin, like he literally had three injuries in one game. So, you're kind of staking your future on a couple of guys that are aging that have long injury histories, and to me that's just a bad bet. So, I don't know, I don't have much in terms, really to hang your hat on. So going to the press conference, so we brought up a couple of things that Nico said. Anything else stand out to you?
The biggest thing that stood out to me was the most ridiculous thing where he said that he knew that Luca was important to the fan base, but he didn't know how important Luca was to the fan base. And if you're that tone deaf in your own organization about a superstar, once in a lifetime generational talent, you have no business managing personnel to any capacity, not even just on an NBA team, but not even on like any team, Pee Wee for that matter. Because if you don't recognize greatness and what a five-time first All NBA player can bring to the team, whether he's a defensive liability or not, which I wouldn't call him a liability. He's not a lockdown defender, but he at least takes up space, in the passing lanes, and he is, at least a body out there. But his scoring far surpassed that. But so Nico was just silly to even air that he didn't realize how important Luca was to this team in this city.
I don't, I mean, that is your job is to understand that impact. You're the freaking GM, right? It is your job. Like that's part of your role is to understand, okay, like if we make moves, what are the consequences of those moves on the rest of the team, on the fan base, in terms of like everything else, right? Ticket sales, attracting future free agents. So, I mean, my question is, well, then where the hell have you been, Nico, for the last 4 years or however long you've been here? Don't you go to the games? Did you not see? Did you not look around and see how people cheered for Luca, how much they loved him? Did you not see that everybody in the stands has a Doncic jersey? I mean, that's to me that's grounds for immediate termination because you're either just a complete idiot or like you have tunnel vision. You're living inside your own head because like anybody, you ask any fan, and so that's yeah, but that was to me like as soon as he said that, I'm like he should immediately be fired because this guy is completely incompetent. Another piece that struck me was that somebody asked him how the trade impacted his relationship with Dumont, and he said it made it stronger. Um, and that to me just underscores how ridiculous and how far off the rails all of this stuff has come. Because I mean, it's pretty clear that I've been talking about this for a while, but organizationally, structurally, Dumont came in a complete basketball dumbass and didn't even think to like, Nico comes to him and is like, "Hey, we're gonna trade the face of the franchise." He had nobody to like, "Hey, let me fact check this." let me go reach out to somebody that I trust and be like, hey, is this a good idea? I think almost every owner in the NBA has some kind of support system like that, right? Where they're just not, you can't just put all the whole organizational direction in the hands of one guy. That is systemic failure. And so, again, going back to the Cuban thing, right? That was really his role. Nico was handpicked for Cuban because that structure makes sense. So, he comes in as, the Nike guy and the relationship guy. You have Cuban who has 20 years of basketball operations experience. And so they balanced each other. But then you have Dumont come in, they kick Cuban to the curb. All of a sudden, you don't have that balance. You just have one guy that's an egomaniac doing all this crazy ass shit that doesn't make sense. So I don't know, man. I thought that was really damning. I think the other thing that really stood out was just his demeanor. Either, dude, I don't understand why people like this guy. He's like, he's not a great speaker. He was up there twiddling his pen, looks super insecure, super nervous. He has kind of a nasally voice. I don't get it. I don't get how this is the relationship guy. It's just it's boggling my mind. I can't reconcile it.
So for me, one thing that I thought was a little surprising though is the fact that he was up there by himself. Normally, if you've got a presser with that many reporters from all different media outlets, you normally at least have someone else that can maybe take a glancing blow or maybe help deflect a question that Nico maybe isn't prepared or wanting to answer. But the fact that they made him do that solo kind of surprised me. I did feel for the guy because I do feel like they kind of hung him out to dry on that regard. But I do agree with you that he did seem out of place, didn't seem to know, didn't seem to have the good presence of what someone who should be in the public eye should have. But it was when I tuned in, I guess I missed some of the harder hitting questions. I tuned into all the softballs at the end that weren't quite as engaging or entertaining as I would have liked to see. But either way, like I said, hopefully we don't have to hear from Nico again for the rest of this off season, and maybe until we get in the very beginning of next year. We'll see.
Yeah, I just look. People have been speculating. Is he going to lose his job? I 100% do not think so. Dumont can't fire him because if Dumont fires him, then you're admitting less than what 4 months after the trade that you fucked up royally, and billionaires don't do that, right? Like you just that's not going to happen. So he's sticking around, at least another year, which is really unfortunate because if you think about what he's going to do, he's committed to this plan. He made it clear in the press conference. He's like, we're coming back with this team, and we think he used the term competing for a championship. Complete bullshit. You're not competing for a championship, but that's what he thinks, and he's going to make more moves to ensure that that's the direction of the team. So you talk about the remaining picks that we have. I fully expect those to get traded away. I don't know what that's going to be, right? Maybe it's KD. I don't think it is, but maybe I think it's more likely it's going to be other veteran players that we're going to bring in. But that's the issue, right? Is that if you fired him today, you could get somebody else. You could bring in another GM, and they'd probably tear it all down, right? And you could salvage the next decade because you can trade AD, you can trade Kyrie, you can trade all these guys and get picks. But we know Nico's not going to do that. He's committed to this vision, so he's going to trade those picks for more veterans and dig the hole even deeper. And that's what's even sadder about this whole thing. I did want to ask you about before Nico's press conference, we had like three major reporters drop bombshell stories about the state of the Mavs and Nico. So one of those, it talks about the firing of Casey Smith. So Casey Smith was around for a long, long time. He was close with Dirk. He was close with Luca. He was basically the head of I don't know what you want to call it, of performance and health for
Was
the
the senior
Mavs.
vice president of physical therapy.
Yes, and he was on the cusp, is my understanding, of attaining actually like an actual executive title within the Mavs front office. But it's reported that before the 24 season, so it's Dirk. Dirk has his Hall of Fame induction, and then almost immediately after that, Nico decides he's going to get rid of Casey Smith, but Casey Smith was out of town. So Nico schedules a Zoom conference while Casey Smith is by the side of his dying mother and fires him. I don't know, man. How did that story hit you? Because it hit me pretty hard.
Stories like that make me question two things. Number one, is this actually how it shook out? Or
Yep.
is someone inflating the actual facts of the story?
Yep.
Based on what we can tell from Nico, he doesn't seem like he's a very smart person in general, and at least not when it comes to emotional intelligence, I should say. Let's
Yep.
start there. He's probably actually a very smart human being, but emotionally, it seems like he might be lacking in some decision making skills. So that's one that really bothers me a lot because if you've got a guy that is, like you said, he's in charge of all sports medicine. He's close to Luca. He was close to Dirk. He probably has a pretty good foothold within the organization amongst all the players, and he's probably well liked. And then you go through and have zero regard for the fact that the dude is getting ready to mourn the soon to be death of his mother, and he has the audacity to say, you know what, let's jump on a Zoom right now. This can't wait 3 weeks. What could have possibly happened in the following 3 weeks that would have been so important that you couldn't have waited? That doesn't do any good. I used I used the term tone deaf earlier. I'm going to use it again now. That's a tone deaf decision based on the emotional status of that particular personnel. And if he just it really sits wrong with me because I know how I would feel if I were put in that position where I'm at my parents' bedside, they're about to die, and someone calls me and says, "Hey, by the way, you're also getting shit canned. See you later. It's been fun." There's no reason, there's no excuse, there's no justifiable reason to do that. 3 weeks is not going to change anything. So dick move. I don't support it. I don't agree with it, and it really made me upset when I read it.
Yeah. Same here. It was disturbing, and frankly, it's just being a shitty human being. Um, and the reason why I'm inclined to believe it the way it was written is because of what look if you look at the surrounding circumstances, Dirk is not involved, man. And like he's clearly pissed off at the organization. So, Casey Smith was a close friend of his, and I think, yeah, absolutely, I think this caused a divide. So that's why I'm inclined to like believe that that's what's going. And then this, later on in the story, they talk about the complete shit show that's happening within the Mavs now with their performance staff. I mean, some ungodly, like crazy stuff. And so it looked like Nico was getting rid of everything that was tied to the old regime, and he was bringing in his own guys, and that has not gone well. It could have cost Derek Lively's career, honestly. I mean, it's just one more thing. So something just popped into my head that I want to ask you about. So we're on the same page in terms of like we don't think Nico's going anywhere now. But let me ask you this: if Luca keeps doing what he's doing and they win the NBA title, do you have to fire him immediately?
I think the action is, yeah, I'll do that. You're clear about it. Be
I have an audio.
okay. I was holding the space bar, not pressing
Okay,
release.
now you're good.
Got knee jerk reaction is yes. I think he's got to be fired. However, I think the to your point earlier regarding Dumont and admitting the fact that he made the wrong decision by letting Luca go, I don't know if he's in a position to admit that defeat yet. It might be something where they go through the postseason, do full team evaluations, looking at the future of what the Adelsons and Dumont want to see, and then make that decision maybe midsummer, right before summer league. But I don't know. I can't imagine they would do it yet, but I definitely think it's on the horizon.
I think it's over at that point. I mean, you literally the trade gave the Lakers a championship. Like I don't see any way past that. But I mean, maybe you're right. Maybe they're like, maybe Nico's argument is strong enough where he's like, okay, well, yes, we gave them a championship, but we're going to win three straight. So we're still going to come out ahead in this. So I don't know. Anything else on Mavs?
Well, that kind of goes back to whatever salesmanship Nico can throw towards Dumont. Because if he's truly bought into this decision and what he believes the team could be, then that might be enough to buy him at least one more season. Which, frankly, I think is going to be a season of mediocrity. And then at the end of that, I could see that scenario playing out too, giving him one more year. And then if they don't make a run, even even make the playoffs, let alone a deep run, I think he'd be definitely gone at that point.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I agree. I think that's no brainer, but I'm interested to see what happens. I mean, sounds like you're rooting for Luca, watching the Lakers games. Okay. I'm seeing that from a lot of Mavs fans.
Yep. I'm rooting for the Lakers, which once again pains me to my deepest core as a Mavericks fan, but there's nobody else I really want to jump on the wagon for. I mean,
Yeah.
Oklahoma's fine, but I don't like them enough to really care. The Bucks maybe because I like Giannis, but you know what? The most emotional drive that I have is Luca, so that makes me root for the Lakers. So I will be
Yeah.
following every game. I will be cheering them on, and because they are a playoff team and B they're LA, they'll be on every outlet possible. So there'll be no shortage of exposure for them.
Yeah. I saw Ben Rogers. He got his first piece of Lakers gear ever. He made that post. It looked like a sleeve or something that had Los Angeles Lakers on it. So um, that seems to be kind of the prevailing wisdom now for Mavs fans since we don't have a dog in the hunt anymore. Um, so it's been weird. It's such a weird season considering where we were a year ago.
We went
Okay.
from a 70% chance of playoffs to a 30% chance of playoffs in with one fell swoop. Anyways, that's enough on the Mavs. We've talked about them for about 25 minutes straight. So let's move on. What else we got on the show today, Ron?
Oh man, it's just I'll never understand how we got here. Okay, so the draft is tomorrow. So the
Mhm.
NFL draft, Cowboys are picking 12. So let's get into it, man. In terms of, let's talk about some players, what we're thinking, what make some predictions. Let's just start with so we know what the Cowboys 30 visits were. So looking at the list, so they had 7 running backs visit. They had 5 wide receivers, 3 offensive linemen, and 6 defensive linemen. Does that concern you?
No, I don't think so. I think that many running backs is questionable. I don't think it's concerning, but I do question why they bring in that many because I'm still a firm believer that you can get basically anybody that is a qualified college running back in a D1 school in a big conference to come play football at the pro level as long as long as the team has a good offensive line. Because even with a subpar quarterback, Brock Purdy, for example, not a great quarterback, but when he had an amazing 10 other people on the offensive side of the ball with him, he looked like he was a top three quarterback. You look at him last year, whenever all of his players are injured, offensive line has troubles, no real weapons to play with, he's just a quarterback. So that goes, and I think Dak is truly, when he's healthy, which by the way, I don't even know this, Dak dropped 30 pounds from last season to this season.
I didn't know
He is
that either.
leaned out. Yeah, he dropped 28, almost 30 pounds in preparation for this season. He wants to be leaner. He wants to be quicker. He wants to be more agile in the pocket. I think he finally learned from that injury that he has to be able to run. But all that to say, if you've got a decent quarterback and a strong offensive line, doesn't matter who you put at running back. I still think, barring any trades down, up, sideways, or otherwise, they still get McMillan, the wide receiver out of Arizona, as their first pick. I'm sticking to my guns on that. I think that's the smartest play to go opposite side of the field of CeeDee Lamb. And then, what do you think? What do you think they're going to do in the first?
So there is reporting coming out today that the Cowboys are currently conducting calls about trading down. So they are laying the groundwork, not necessarily to say, okay, we're for sure trading down, but it sure seems like they want to have some preliminary conversations. That way, if it comes up during the draft, you don't have all the time in the world, so they want to be able to say yes or no. So, I mean, dude, a lot depends on that. If they stay at 12, I agree with you. If McMillan is there, which I don't know that he will be, but if he is there, I think he would be the pick. Um, so let me read through some. So there's some, I've been looking at like mock drafts. And so this is what everybody else, all the NFL experts, this is what they're saying. So one of them had Matthew Golden, the wide receiver out of UT, that had such a strong start to the year. We had 3 different ones say McMillan, which is, what I think we're thinking too. One of them said Tyler Booker, the guard out of Alabama, Will Campbell, the tackle out of LSU, and another one had Jalen Walker, the linebacker out of Georgia. Um, so, a decent spread, but you can tell there's a concentration there in wide receiver, specifically with McMillan. So,
So if
I don't
if
know.
they if they trade down, how far do you think they trade down? How many spots? Because I mean, of course, the farther you trade down, the more picks you're going to get for it. But the question is, I mean, after 12, you're right. There's a lot of choices there. The thing that I'm curious about is if they consider to trade up because the Chicago Bears have Shador Sanders at 10 on several mocks, and I do believe that Jerry Jones loves the idea of that splash pick because that's a very Jerry Jones pick. That's very similar to when he wanted Johnny Football in that draft when we took Zach Martin instead. And I wouldn't be surprised if he, made some stirring about that. But if they trade down, I mean, they there's still so many good players in this first round. There's so many opportunities, but what do they get is the question. What do they get?
Yeah. I mean, I'd be pretty pissed off if they trade up because this is self-inflicted. They could be picking it like 3, 4, or 5 right now had they not decided to win some completely meaningless games with Cooper Rush. So, you dug your own hole. There is absolutely no reason. Once we lost the Houston game, I think we were like 3-7, and Dak was injured. He was done. Why? Why? Dude, it still boggles my mind. Like, it still pisses me off. Like, why did we decide to keep winning games after that? I mean, the season was over, but
And that was a double-edged sword to let Cooper Rush go out there and do well. It should have been the Trey Lance show because Cooper Rush went out, showed that he's actually a really, really good serviceable backup quarterback yet again, which what happened? He's now gone. So now we don't have a good backup quarterback. So that's where I wonder, do they draft a quarterback? Do they, try to make a splash by trading up? Or do they just keep with Dak and figure something out?
so Jerry said in his press conference yesterday they are not taking a quarterback. Um, Now Jerry says a lot of stuff.
Yeah, I
So
don't I
take
don't trust a damn thing out of that man's mouth.
so do with that what you will. But so yeah, so the trade up scenario would I mean I would be irate. But so talking about the trade down, so here's what I'm thinking. I could see them doing a couple things. So let's say they trade from 12. Let's just say that it's a minor trade back, right? So you trade back 7, 8 spots and you go back to like 19 or 20. If they do that, I could see them target Omarion Hampton because I think that's the area he's projected to go. So, that goes back to the whole thing. Are they willing to consider running back in the first round? I don't know. I agree with you. I hope not. I kind of don't think they will, but that is something that's on the table. If they come calling and say, oh, Jerry, we know you need a running back. We'll give you pick 20 and we'll throw in a third. Do you take that? I don't know. Maybe.
I mean, I like the idea of having a good first round pick, but at the same time, I'm a bigger fan of building lots of good players. Instead of having one great player, I would rather have a whole lot of really good pieces that they can build around because we've talked about this in the past, but the draft has been one of the stronger factors within this Cowboys organization with Will McClay and team to
Yep.
getting actually serviceable first year good players. So I think I would trust them well enough to trade down, get some more pieces, and put together a better overall package as opposed to just making one really awesome first round pick.
Yeah, they have so many holes. We already know they're not active in free agency. They're just, they don't, maybe they had some guys via trade, but, I think the odds are pretty slim in that direction. So I do think they're going to be motivated to say, okay, we need to add as many players to fill holes as we can via the draft. Something that I could see happening that I would actually be a fan of. So Josh Simmons. So he's an offensive lineman who dominated college football. Unfortunately, he had a season-ending knee injury. Um, I think he'll be fine for training camp. But he's projected to go late first round. I would be perfectly happy with them trading back to late first if you can pick up an extra second, and then and then all of a sudden you have 3 players that you're taking in the first 2 rounds. I'd be happy with that deal.
I mean, there's a good chance if you trade far enough down in the first round, you can get potentially, depending on the team and how big of a need it is, you might be able to get a good first round, pick for
Yeah.
this year, and then also get at least one more first rounder extra for next year. I'd be fine with that. I think that would be the best play because realistically, in the first round, I mean, you've got your top seven, top eight players that are all the most coveted. Everybody else from 8 to 32 isn't that dissimilar in quality of player. So
Yeah, and then the other thing I think is this draft is not, you know, it's not considered to be a particularly good draft. So I've seen estimates that some people are saying there's only like four first round grades like in this draft, which is terrible. Usually you have like, between 18 and like 25. So that's really, really bad. So that I think just makes the case even more so to trade back, right? Because you're not going to get one of those top four players more than likely. So, it doesn't hurt you as much. There's not as much of an opportunity cost to go to from 12 to 20 or 12 to 28, or whatever that number is. Um, and then you get more throws at the dartboard, right? You get more opportunities to draft somebody that pops. And so I think it's even more important for the Cowboys because I think we have our third rounder. I don't think we have a fourth rounder, or it's the reverse because we sent who was it for? Was it for Mingo or for Trade Lane? I don't know. We traded one of those guys away. So I know one of those rounds we actually don't have a pick. So I think there's even more pressure for us to add somebody.
we have round one, pick 12, round two, pick 12, round three, pick 12, no fourth rounder. We've
Okay.
got two fifth round picks, one of which is a comp pick. We've got two six rounders, one from Lions through Browns and Bills, one's a comp pick, one seventh rounder from Titans through Patriots. Oh, two, excuse me, seventh rounders, so three seventh rounders, all of which were trades through other teams. So I mean, I think that's pretty good. Yeah, and since we've got the number 12 pick, yeah, I think you trade down, get a good end of the first round pick, pick up a first rounder for next year, and then just knock out and even maybe pick up with that trade down, get a fourth rounder this year just to round out, the entire draft. I think that could work. I'd be amenable to that.
Yeah, yeah, I mean, yeah, you're just in a tough spot because you need as many top, once you get past the fourth, fifth round, it really is a hardcore dart throw. So the more picks you can, kind of stockpile in the first four rounds, um, usually leads to good things. So the fact that we don't have a fourth rounder, I think will make them a little bit more amenable when somebody calls needing to move up. Now, unfortunately for us, that makes it hard to predict, what's going to happen. So I think if they stay put, um, we both went with McMillan. I mean, I think that's the safe choice. You want to make a wild prediction.
I already said it. My wild prediction would be they trade up and take Shador, or even crazier, take Travis Hunter. Because what more fun would be than having Travis Hunter, who, by the way, in a press conference recently said that if a team doesn't allow him to play both ways, cornerback and wide receiver, he's not going to play. He's going to go back to college. What do you think about that? And then what would be your splash play, like crazy, absolute ridiculous draft pick?
So I'm writing these down. So if they stay put, we are both predicting Tetero McMillan. And crazy prediction. All right, so you're predicting trade up for Sanders or Travis Hunter. Like I said, that would absolutely infuriate me. Now, hold on. One thing to mention on that. Would they have to trade up for Sanders? Is he
He's
considered a top 10
he's about
guy?
10th right now, so there's a chance he could slip to 12.
Hmm, really?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Wow. But dude, I would have thought he would have been like late first.
Both mocks had him in the 8 to 15 range, but the most recent one I looked at
You
had him at 12, or I had him at 10. Excuse me.
okay? Okay. Then in my case, I was trying to think how spicy I want to make this. I got devilish thoughts of crazy stuff the Cowboys could do. So let me pull up. I want to see one thing here. I want to see who the teams are behind us.
You got Miami at
So
13, Indianapolis
okay,
14, Atlanta, Arizona, Cincinnati, Seattle, Tampa, Denver. Steelers, Chargers, Packers, and Vikings. That's through 24. So that's realistically where we'd probably trade down to somewhere in that range.
Okay, so I'm trying to think of like somebody that's good but has a clear need that they would trade up for.
To relive
So
the Ezekiel Elliott glory days. That'd be to trade that mess down, though.
yeah, I think he's gonna go to Jacksonville. So the player's going around 12. So we have Nolan, the defensive tackle. We have the receivers, so Golden or McMillan. We have Kelvin Banks, the tackle out of Texas. So I could see, nah, that's not far enough. I was going to say I could see the Bengals moving up to take one of the offensive linemen, but that's not a big enough difference. I mean, you're only moving up a few spots. They could probably, I mean, they have a chance at Banks even where they're at. Denver, Steelers, Chargers. Maybe the Chargers. Okay, so then we'd probably I'm thinking the 21 or 22 spot. So I'll just say the 22 spot. So the Cowboys trade down to 22. So they move down 10 spots. And then I'll go with what I said before. I think they ooh, but you could also get Igbuka there. Oh man.
What are you thinking, Grant or Booker?
Actually,
You know,
you know, I'm
this
gonna
mock
amend
draft,
it.
I'm looking at now through CBS Sports has Shador at 21.
See, that's where more I'd see him. I'd see him going late first. Oh,
Who you got?
KC. Yeah, I could see KC take a move up to take a. Nah, you'd have to stay in front of them. You'd have to trade with probably. Yeah, it would probably be Minnesota or Green Bay. That's as far back as you can go. So I'll say they move back to 24. They trade with Minnesota, and then at 24 they take wide receiver Emeka Egbuka, who I also am a pretty big fan of. And then they pick up an extra second in the process. So that's my crazy prediction, which I would be a huge fan of because I mean, you get an extra second round pick, you get that number two wide receiver to slot next to CD, and yeah, I mean, Igbuka is just he's an after the catch god, right? He reminds me a lot of Debo Samuel, but he's a way better like route runner and actual receiver than Debo is.
Which, and
Um,
frankly, I think in this league, route running and being able to catch the ball is far more effective than getting like long chunk plays. Like, don't get me wrong, I want after the catch yardage, but I want someone to be able to get some space and actually catch the ball. There have been, I feel like the rate of drops and the rate of tight window throws have gotten so high that you need someone that can just get some off the line separation, whether it's just on a quick drag or even like a quick up and out or up and in. But we I want someone that can just make a difference on short, like a Wes Welker type, one of those wiry little Cooper Cup type guys. Those are so much fun to watch. They get open, and like Cole Beasley. He once again that's three small white dudes, not quite the same vein of what we're talking about, but those were really fun football players to watch because they get open, they catch the ball, and they get down, and then that allows the play clock to be able to, all right, let's get back on it, let's run another play, and let's go. It keeps the defense tired. So I want something like that.
that's why I think that's why I think Igbuka is a perfect fit. He's a slot receiver. He is amazing in space. He's great after the catch. And the other reason why I think, I think you mentioned some great reasons why he fits right in. But the other thing is like the Cowboys are if they don't draft a running back, I mean, you need somebody else that can make plays in space, right? So he's somebody that in short yardage situations, you throw the ball in the flat or you run like a screen or something like that, and he's quick enough to get open immediately and pick up first downs. So, if you don't take a running back, I think he would actually address some of the same needs, right? That, you usually draft a running back for.
So here's where the running back argument does come into play because one of the plays that the Cowboys like to run a lot with CD is the jet sweep. And if you've got a average to less than average running back there, there's less pressure on the defense to try to follow that screen to lead them away from the jet sweep versus if you take a really good running back that has the ability to A block, B catch in the backfield, and C just be a route runner, then that makes that jet sweep that much more effective. And we've run that a lot
Yeah.
with not only CD but also with Cavante Turpin, which I imagine we'll see more of this season too.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a good point. So the one downside to everything that we've talked about, and I think what we're hoping the Cowboys do, is that there is a good argument to be made that, you know, a receiver might not fix our issues as much as just taking a really good O lineman would,
Agreed.
right? So, I think I would also be happy if the Cowboys just, stood pat and they took Kelvin Banks out of Texas, and they addressed the offensive line. They had one more guy, that's really good in the room. So, you have a stud in Tyler Smith, and you have a bunch of question marks. Like is Tyler Guyton? I mean, I don't know. He didn't have a great rookie year. You have BB. Zach
He's
Martin's
not a
gone.
starter.
Yeah, I mean, like, what does it matter if you add all this receiving talent? If Dak still only has 1.5 seconds on average to get rid of the ball, it doesn't. So maybe we might be getting blinded a little bit by, the shiny toy when in reality they should just be prudent and stick there and take the tackle.
100%. I mean, when you look at the best teams out there, the Philadelphias, the Kansas Cities, they've got fantastic protection up front. Of course, Philly took a step backwards with Jason Kelsey's retirement, but they still
Yeah.
did just fine.
Hmm.
Clearly, they did
Especially on the
just fine.
running.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So offensive line, I agree, is a foundation, and I just get so sad. I just saw that Tyron Smith just retired and did a 1 day contract with the Cowboys, so he could retire a Cowboy, and that made me
Really,
sad
I didn't see
because
that.
yeah, yeah. So that is officially the end of the 2006 team era. So Sean Lee, Des Bryant, Tyron Smith, Travis Frederick, all those guys are now officially retired. And that's so sad because 2006 was the year I graduated high school, and that was just such a fun year anyway. But especially having all those players and harkening back to the days of still no Super Bowl, but the best football team and the best football playing that we saw. It just makes me sad to see that that era is officially over.
Yeah, I can't believe you left out legends like Miles Austin, Jason Witten.
You know what? You know what? Miles Austin, I actually really liked him a lot. He had hamstring issues, but the his
Yep.
breakout game against Kansas City where he had 250 yards was just amazing. And yeah, Jason Witten, of course, is great. There were so many good players on that team.
Yeah.
Andre
Yeah.
Gerard,
Oh
Anthony
man.
Spencer, Bill Adams was still, technically on the team at that point in time, but he had passed the torch to Tyron Smith. But yeah, it's sad. I'm sorry for leaving out some greats. Forgive me, please, Ron.
Shout out to Marco Murray. Shout out Felix Jones. Shout out
Marco
Barber.
Murray today, RIP.
But yeah, true. RIP, man.
He died. I actually got to wait on him one time. I worked at Buffalo Wild Wings in Louisville when I first moved up here from San Angelo. I transferred from the B Dubs there to the B Dubs in Louisville, and he was a regular, so he'd come in all the time. Nice dude.
Really? Okay. Okay. Um, I've been in Dallas 7 years, and the most famous person I've ever run into is who is it?
Clearly not that famous if you can't remember their name.
No, I'm trying to think of somebody I ran into like because yeah, I mean, I shook Sean Marion's hand one time. I think that was the Dirty Bath game. I'm trying to think of like in the wild. I think the only person I've run into is Maxi Kleba.
I mean, he was
So
a household name to a degree.
so I was at Hop Dotties in Uptown. I walk in and he's in line in front of me with some girl. But at first, I mean, his back was to me, and so I'm just like, damn, this dude is insanely freaking tall. And then somebody comes out of the kitchen and they're like, hey, can I get a picture? I was like, wait, who is this guy? And then he turns around and I'm like, it's freaking Kleba. And it's funny because like he was there with a girl and she was like 4'6". So like the dichotomy of like them together was so strange. So, anyways, well, we'll see what happens, man. Draft is always one of the funnest nights of the year. I'm excited. How are you taking in the action?
Okay.
What
Maybe I misunderstood your question. Restate.
what are you doing? Like, are you watching it at home? You going to a bar, barbecuing?
I'm going to follow along on my phone to some degree. I'm driving to San Angelo tomorrow. So after the regional master networks meeting, I got to hit the road. My dad passed in December, and so I'm trying to get back to San Angelo as often as I can to spend some time with mom while she's still going through her stuff. And so I'll be leaving Friday, probably around 1, and then so when I get to her house, I'll probably stop, grab dinner on the way, and then get there, probably turn it on. By that point, I imagine the first round will be over, maybe not, and then I'll probably keep an eye on it throughout the weekend, and then I'll come home Sunday. So I'll keep a loose eye on it. What do you got plans?
Dude, I spend most of my evenings now watching NBA playoffs. So I'll probably be flipping back and forth, honestly, just here at the house, So I'll tune into a game and then flip over once in a while, see what's going on. And then once the Cowboys are about to come on the clock, of course, I'll switch over fully and then that's always a ton of fun. And so we'll see, man. You never know how it's going to play out, right? Sometimes it's like, okay, you can just tune in at 12 and they pick and that's it. Or sometimes it's like, oh, and then they move back and then you got to keep watching, right? And then if I move back, so we'll see how it goes, but I'm excited about it. Okay, so that's draft. We got a couple minutes here. I don't know if you want to hit stars real quick. They
Yeah,
finally broke the
I'll
choke
touch on the
streak.
stars. Yeah, I'll touch on the stars real quick. So yeah, like I talked about in the last pod, they ended the season losing 7 games straight and just getting their asses whipped left and right in all those games. The first game of the series with the Avalanche looked exactly the same. They lost 5-1, I believe. And so I was like, here we go. All right, we are starting this off on the wrong foot. Looks like, the addition of Sagan back in the middle of April hasn't actually helped that much. And so I was not putting the nail in the coffin yet, but I was not optimistic. I was cautiously optimistic. And but then they came back and tied it up and won in overtime last night. So we're tied up series 1-1. So I have a little bit more faith restored that the Stars will continue to do that. Outside of Stars news, Ovechkin now has officially passed Wayne Gretzky as the all-time scorer. So he has 895 goals on his career. So that's exciting. But outside of that, Let's Go Stars. They play tonight. So hopefully we get another W. So I'll be watching that pretty closely this evening.
Let's go Stars. Any
Let's Go Stars.
other sports stuff you want to hit?
And the only thing about the Rangers that's really of note, they've looked pretty good the last couple days. So we've got the number one ERA pitcher in Male Molly, how we pronounce his last name. I can never remember that. And then Jock Peterson has gone 0 for 40 in at bats this season. He cannot make contact with the ball. So I'm hoping that slump gets hit out of relatively quickly. But that's the only notables on the Rangers. You got any tidbits you want to throw in?
No, I think, the Rangers still have some offensive problems. I think they lost 1-0 the other night to the Dodgers. So they haven't, maybe we were a little bit premature in thinking they had figured that out. Um, so, you got to think they'll heat up sooner or later. But yeah, it's been that piece has been interesting to watch. No, I do want to mention something, a phenomenon that's happening non-sports wise. So we've been known to talk TV and film on this podcast a little bit. Obviously, there was a big Last of Us episode that was pretty mind blowing and pretty heartbreaking. So that was, I don't know, maybe we need to get into that at some point. And
I hated
yeah,
it.
there's
I
some.
hated it so much. I cried like a blubbering baby, and I was not prepared. I never played the game. I'm not a big gamer, and so that wasn't something that was on my radar of what to expect, what I knew was going to happen. And so we won't spoil it for the fans that maybe are listening that haven't watched it. But so far into season 2, I like it better than season 1. I feel like they are progressing the storyline a lot faster. I thought this episode was up there in cinematography, production, quality, plot, story, everything, like up with Battle of the
Yep,
Bastards with Game of Thrones. It was so good. I loved
yep,
watching that.
yep. I thought it was. I mean, if you think about where it happened, so usually you have these big battles, big set pieces. They're either the penultimate episode or or there's somewhere in there, right? Second to last episode, whatever it is. This one happened in the second episode of a season. So, I think you have to immediately rank it as maybe the second best episode of all time. I have to go through things, but I can't imagine. Well, I don't. Okay, I don't want to spoil anything, but the last season of Succession had something happen, and then I don't remember if it was episode 2 or 3. So that might be the
This
contender.
one is like 2 years old from the last season. Spoil away.
So yeah, the last season in one of the early episodes, Logan dies. It was during Connor's wedding. And that episode was absolutely stunning. So I need to check if that was in episode 2 or 3. But yeah, I mean, there's not many contenders. It was unreal TV. I was tense the whole freaking time. So much going on, and then obviously the ending was just a gut punch on a red wedding level that you just don't see very often. So shout out to The Last of Us for delivering an incredible hour of TV. Only other thing I wanted to mention was so right now, film wise, Sinners has kind of taken over the world. I see a bunch of people watching it. It's very highly rated. So I'm going to go check that out tonight. I'm very excited as a film nerd. So I don't really know anything about it. I've seen a couple previews, but it's always exciting to see something independent do well. So shout out to the
What,
TV and film
what is it
world.
called?
It's called Sinners. So it's a Ryan Coogler movie starring Michael B. Jordan. And yeah, I mean, it has almost perfect rating. And I've seen, yeah, people that usually don't go, people that I know that only go watch Marvel movies are going to see this. So that always gets me excited. So I'm really excited to get to see it tonight. Me and the wife are going for a date night. So we'll see.
Yeah, I haven't heard about that. So you'll have to tell me how it is, and then I'm always down for going to see movies. So we'll definitely have to check it out over here. The, Going back to The Last of Us real quick, last thing I'll say, the
Yeah.
only like criticism I would give this show, season two is maybe a little bit too early to qualify it the same way, but season one, even though I said I haven't played the video game, it very much felt like a video game. Like the way that the story is put together and then rolled out on the screen. Clearly it was a video game, I get it, but I feel like they took that too much to the screen and they could have made it a little bit differently. But either way, it's still a great show. I'm still really enjoying it, and we'll see how it progresses.
I think that piece has its ups and downs. So, yeah, you kind of have to deal with it and accept that as it is. Because, like, so for example, this past episode, one of the parts that felt like a video game, but I actually thought was really freaking cool, was when he was barbecuing that, what do they call it, the bloater, the big dude, the big shroom. Yeah, so he was barbecuing him, and you could see the dial, right, as like his tank was dying out, and that is very much how it feels when you're actually in a game doing something like that. But yeah, valid criticism, but I mean, great episode, and I can't wait for Sunday to see what happens next.
Yeah, my wife was really funny when the bloater showed up. She's like, "Where the hell is this big guy coming from?" Because they're just regular people that have been bit. So how does this gigantic asshole come around?
That's my question too, man.
I looked it up. It's some sort of modified, advanced cordyceps creature. I don't know, but whatever. It's still fun. It adds an extra element to it. But yeah, good show.
Yeah. Okay. All right. In terms of next week, I don't know, man. I think maybe the Stars Rangers will probably have a bigger factor. Obviously, we'll recap this. We'll recap the draft, talk about who we added, and but yeah, I think it's going to be time to shift focus a little bit now that the Mavs season's over and Cowboys off season is progressing, and hopefully the Stars are still in it, and we have a lot to talk about. And then we just kind of tread water until it's time to talk PGA Championship.
Yeah, I think we'll be talking Stars, Lakers, Last of Us, draft. I think that's going to
Love it.
be pretty good talking points, and of course, whatever beer we have for the day. So I'm looking forward to it. Well, if there's nothing else from you, for
All
Ron Hearn,
good.
I'm Brandon Cooley, and as always, the last round's on us. Next round.